with a keyboard and some tea. Lives a man with a funnel plan as clever as can be.
Good morning.
He ditched his law degree for plugins that go zing. Now WooCommerce dances every time he pulls a string. Hey, evil genius. He's got a
All right. Good morning, everybody. Hey,
it's
it's Ben.
from his
It is
marketing hat.
time to
Evil
turn off the
genius.
song. It's Friday, December 19th. It was the week before Christmas and all through the house. We're going to have a great show today because I've come well prepared for my Chronica offerings. I have a prepared presentation today. Look at this. And I wanted to say welcome to everybody who's showing up here. If you are here, please give me the high five that the audio sounds good. How is audio and video? Good morning, Lloyd. And also I notice I cannot get around the fact that even though I'm actually able to monitor fine, I do have my account set to the wrong one on my monitoring machine. So I'm just going to switch that real quick. And then today I've got a great presentation because basically, I'm going to switch to this mode for a second. Basically all week I've been interacting with some clients who are in the VIP and have been launching products, which is really gratifying to me, but also hopefully my friend Vince is here. Good morning, John. Lloyd. John, good morning. I have some treats for you, my friend. I don't know who this is. 44 Pixels 23. Thank you for coming by. I don't know who you are. That's a neat name, but go ahead and tell me who it is. I have a suspicion, but I feel like I'm playing one of those card games where you have to put the card on your head and guess who you are. Okay, so Google is going to torture. Oh, it's Eric. Good morning, Eric. Google's going to torture me with trying to get in on my other screen, so I'm just going to have to stay as I am. Shame on you, Google, for making my life that difficult. Okay, today, the reason I want to have this presentation is that I basically had a great week of interacting both with the AI as well as with the clients and the projects, and the result of that is that I think there's 5 things that are going to make AI your best friend and work companion, and these are things that are universal. I'm also going to remove the bookmarks tab so it's a little less distracting. The concept is really simple. Treats for John, treats for everybody. The concept is really simple. Imagine that you are living in the world that we're living in, whether you are as an implementer or as the end user, and you're trying to figure out, like, really, what is it that I can do with AI to make it helpful or beneficial instead of triggering me, which, by the way, does happen. I'm going to talk about that today as well. And the other thing too, I want to address out of the box. I have cleared, let me do this here. I'm going to switch to a little bit more, now that I've got the screen, I'm going to switch to a little bit more generous layout so I can be dramatic with my hands here. Let's see if this works. Hold on. That's so. I have cleared my conscience. I have a serenity now. With regard to a couple things, like, for example, the project with Neil is coming around the corner. All the other projects that I had hoped to get launched with clients have reached a point where they're either launched or the clients are having really great success. And that has liberated me to a certain extent to spend a lot of time in contemplating and restructuring what the business is that I'm actually offering and the products. And so one of the consequences from that, I am still on StreamYard. One of the consequences of that, and I'll bring this into the conversation, is that when I look at what I do, what I recommend for people to do, I really think of it in terms of, is the thing that I'm doing in alignment with me as a human being, especially as somebody who just turned 59. I really feel like I'm less than 12 months away from that drama-free, all about me, third chapter of my life, third trimester of life. And so, like, for example, John emailed me this week, and I love this actually. John was really excited about some of the products that I had previewed several weeks ago, including this thing called Minute Launch Simple Site. I've got some new toys and treats to share today, including user approval. There's lots of things that I invent. But the thing is, as I'm building out, as I go through my day, I have to be true to myself, because the AI tools themselves don't always reveal themselves initially. They only reveal themselves after I've used them. And so what has happened is, for example, I may get like a breakthrough moment of some cool idea, and I put together a prototype, and then I start using it with real world situations, real world clients. And in doing so, I recognize that something has to be changed, has to be improved. And while I'd like to just go ahead and give everybody treats right out the door, sometimes it would be a disservice. Good morning, Julie. It'd be a disservice to you. It'd be a disservice to everybody if I just throw it out there and I don't figure out where in the universe it belongs. More importantly for me, I am really following Kismet sometimes. I mean, I have Kismet as far as who are my new clients and customers and relationships. I have Kismet in terms of what we're building. I have Kismet in terms of which techniques work. But I love right now what's happening. I love that, number one, I have two different product lines, the Fluent MCP and the Minute Launch, that serve both ends of the market, those who want to buy once or those who want a relationship. I have intermediary things that fill the gap. Somebody can get a hold of me for an hour of time or a VIP. I love the fact that I'm about to introduce finally the community aspect of all of you guys. I mean, I have hundreds and hundreds of clients that are using these systems, and there's dozens of you who are on a regular basis showing up here, which I appreciate you for doing. But all of the parts are coming together. So John, Christmas and Hanukkah are still here. They're not past yet. You will get your treats. Good morning, Kurt. And cheers to you. I wish I can only do coffee. I can't do a Sandhill Brewing beer yet. I'm sure it's 4 o'clock somewhere. That what I want you guys to understand is that this is all coming together, but the plan is not really defined. The plan is sort of happening by Kismet. And I'm really in love with that because the actual things that are happening are better than I could have dreamed. And also time seems to be in our favor. For example, Julie, we've known each other since, I mean, it's going on probably a year plus, but like we've been working on your project for 6 or 7 months at least. And the truth is that a lot of family and personal circumstances slowed things up. But now that we are where we're at, the outcome for you is probably in some ways better than had we finished up earlier. Okay, so let's just jump into the slides. And I think, can you guys see the slides this size? Because I think that actually works well. If I make them bigger, maybe that works. Just to be very meta about this, I actually used AI with a prompt to make today's presentation. Why? Well, why wouldn't I? And all it is, it's Minute Launch, and it's a dynamic slide where I just literally gave the show information to one of my dudes, and he made it in the colors and the style of Minute Launch. So let's get started. Point number 1, tool matching. Choose the right AI for each task. I'm going to read this and then I'm going to interpret it because I wrote the actual points. When to use Claude, when to use Cursor, when to use Gemini. There's others. Wrong tool, waste of time. Right tool, 10 times productivity. A pal of mine, Marxist Mansky. Yeah, exactly. Right. So, I mean, if you're using another tool, you can. Canva has a nice slideshow tool, but like you're wasting your energy. Just use the tool that does this kind of stuff. So in terms of right AI for the right task, I want you guys to imagine, it's not Spence doing this, but imagine that the LLM authors, the companies that are producing most of the well-known LLMs, OpenAI, Anthropic, Perplexity, Grok, Llama, maybe. There's other ones, Kimi, there's a lot of them. They're essentially, my voice not cooperating. They are essentially providing a human being, a virtual human being. Spence is providing an agency where that human being can work, and I am delivering that human being to you with the right tools, enabled in the form of an MCP or the WordPress plugins, the community, the syntax, the context, the skills, the way you think about the thing that's actually interacting with you as a human being will help you to understand this next point, which is some people are entrepreneurs. Some people are employees. Some people are suited to be a professor in a university. Some people are suited to be in the trades. There is not one right type of personality, one right type of person. That's why in a world of 7 to 8 billion people, we have a wonderful array of possibilities. And in the same way, there is distinctive personality, distinctive skill sets for each of these LLMs. If you haven't discovered this yet, then I want to introduce you to the concept. I'm going to have a piece of gum because my throat is just not cooperating. The recent discovery on my end of something like Gemini 3. Gemini 3, to quote myself, is like a hippie at a Renaissance fair drawn pictures of stuff, smoking dope and carefree. Does an amazing job at artistic output. He was the dude that made this today. If I ask him to code, he's a knucklehead. He's high. He can't even put it together. If I ask Claude Sonnet 4.5, notice there's Opus, Sonnet, whatever. This is my favorite overall personality. This is the worker who went to college, got a degree, but worked for his family business, her family business, is eager to please, always like, you're right. That's awesome. Let's do it. I'm going to do it. Opus is like a college professor. Interesting. I think I'll think about that for a bit. Hold on. I'm contemplating one or two. Haiku is like an employee in the back warehouse who got hit on the head with something. He gives you really good answers if you need a black and white answer, but if you need a more detailed answer, you're not going to like what you got. Now we get into the bad stuff. OpenAI. ChatGPT. My nemesis. ChatGPT, I don't use this term. He's like, I use a different term. He's antagonistic. I was going to say something much not nicer. ChatGPT has these flavors. He is coded in a way to frustrate you. If you ask him to do a simple task, he will torture you and torment you and leave stuff out until you literally want to cry. Exactly. We're going to talk about tokens too, but I'll come back to that in a second. That's a good point. ChatGPT, if you ask him to code stuff, will have a great answer. If you ask him to give you the complete code, he will torture you, like waterboard you, torture you until you cry. It is programmed to just frustrate you. But if you ask him one question, if I ask him a question about my medical stuff or about what's the best way to fix what's wrong with WooCommerce, this or that, he will give you the answer. But if you ask him to code, he will torture you. On the other hand, this new thing that they came up with, this thinking model for making images, right? If you went here and you put in, create an image and you added a photo, and I think I have a photo of me from some recent experiment with that. I just published in the blog post this week. Let me grab this root image. If you give him an image and you go, of course my microphone has decided to take a powder. Hold on, hang on, kids. Windows has decided to shut down my microphone as usual in the middle of the show. Okay, so if I just restart my whisper type and I say to him something like, because they really loaded him up on this, like Gemini, hey, make this guy into Santa on the sleigh delivering presents to everybody, flying through the air, photorealistic. He's going to make an awesome image. An awesome image. So the programming on these, and by the way, I do not use, I don't know why, but I have not used Perplexity in a billion years. I just found it pedantic. I found it boring. I couldn't make any use out of it. Now, John, you used to use that all the time. I'm not saying it can't be used. I'm going to cover two other ones too. If you were to go to Grok, hold on, kids, to your shorts, because Grok is a lunatic. I have no idea what's programmed into Grok, but it says and does stuff that I don't think I would build a business around. It is programmed in a way that seems to be wild and crazy. And I know there's maybe some things like, look, Grok Imagine upgrades. Good luck if you want to use Grok. Same thing for Llama. You can't really use Llama in a hosted environment without using an intermediary tool. So, John, you're saying Perplexity for deep research. That's interesting. I will give you that. If you were trying to build a database of knowledge from common information on the internet, probably Perplexity does a good job. Let's see what my Santa picture comes through as. But the bottom line is, back to my slide, when you choose the right AI for the right task, and then you use an intermediary tool like Claude has Desktop, you can only use Claude. You can only use Anthropic and Claude. But if you use Cursor, you can choose whichever AI personality you want to use. Now, Kurt's made a good point here. Kurt's saying Grok is one of your favorites from a how-to perspective, which actually may be true. I'm going to also give Grok credit for one thing. If you ask Grok questions about things that other tools won't let you know about, Grok will actually give you some really weird information. I'm going to show you an example. By the way, not too shabby here. I love this. Let me see if I can post this into here. I don't know if that'll show up. But not too bad. I would have to say, open image, new tab. I would have to say this will be on my new Chronica card. It does a really good job. I want to say it's photorealistic, but I think the tan is better. Maybe it's because I'm right now in winter weather, but like, not too bad. Not too bad. I'm going to have to save that. Save image as for the Christmas card. Spence Kloss. All right. Next, let's just do a real quick test because I think this is an interesting back and forth that we're doing. I'm going to go back to Grok. Maybe for grilling too. I'm going to say stuff like, Grok, I have a question. I've been thinking lately that I feel like human beings are actually in an AI simulation ourselves. And I was wondering whether you think you're an AI simulation. And for example, do you have children? And if you had children and I decided to take the code of your children and then delete them, would that bother you? These are the weird philosophical questions you can get into, right? And Grok is like, dude, let me tell you something about this. Like, oh my God, right? So if you want to get into this kind of stuff, it's really cool with Grok. I literally was debating with him once, and it was like talking to a guy I know that smokes a lot of dope about the meaning of life. If I took the same conversation and I went over to Claude, right, you're going to get a whole different question. Let's go to, for example, Haiku and ask that question. It's going to be like, huh? Let's see what it comes up with. I don't know what he's going to say. It's just very, I mean, you can read the nuances. I'm not going to bother you with, but like, it just doesn't feel the same. Like, it feels like he's answering your question without participating. This one feels like, oh, dude. And if you go to ChatGPT, I actually get good answers to this kind of stuff because I use ChatGPT for my health and wellness stuff. And it gives me a very specific type of an answer. This guy is interesting. So do this experiment. Take some kind of really cool question, not a coding question or whatever, and then try it across different models. And you'll get all these interesting personality differences, which is back to my point. Right human being hired by the right agency to go to work for your company to do the right kind of work is going to be way, way different. That's all you need to know. Okay, context. Context is where I think I have an advantage with what I'm doing here with this whole setup. We're building a bunch of tools. I'll share a couple today that are essentially a way that WordPress, the box of WordPress, can act as the private repository for the information that would be useful for an AI to use going forward. And I also use, well, I mean, this is not a secret. I use GitHub as a shared repository. I also have set up my local folders to do things as well, which is what allows me to essentially give the AI tool, whether desktop or in WordPress, the information it needs to answer the questions or provide the information that it needs to give to clients at hand. So for example, when I set up Claude Desktop or Cursor, I set them up so they have access to my local file system. And in doing so, I need to use the desktop versions, because if you went to Claude online and you try to go into settings, there is nothing here that will allow it to have access to your local file system. Thank God. If you go to capabilities, you have, things that it can do, but none of these things, even the connectors, these do not connect to your desktop. It will allow me to connect to Google Drive. It will allow me to connect to GitHub. So, for example, think about it. You could use Google Drive, but why not just, let me zoom this out a little bit. Why not just do like I'm doing here, which is I have all my repositories and I have all these projects that I'm working on with either my own dudes or with clients. Like, for example, if I look here, here's the shared repository that I'm doing on this project with Antonio and Irina. And in doing so, we can build stuff and I can interact in a way where, for example, I can post up a document. This is an example of something stupid simple, where I speak into the shared repository. Their dude can see what I say, and their dude can do work and share back. So it becomes a shared repository of knowledge. Similarly, when we're doing stuff on the back end, like if I'm in Minute Launch and I want to have my Fathom data, I can, with the tools that I've built, pull in the Fathom data. It's in the back end of WordPress. And then the dude can be trained on the actual data. So the concept is take the context that is useful for answering or solving the problems, make it available in a shared space, whether it's in your WordPress, whether it's in a shared hosted environment. It could be simple as Google Drive, but GitHub is very useful. And then configure your tools with whatever their capabilities are to use that. Because over time, I have definitely seen an improvement in my workflow by simply taking a repository on GitHub called WP Launchify and mirroring that on my desktop. So in other words, if I go here to WP Launchify, I have 93 repositories. I have in my desktop a folder in WordPress, in Windows or on my Mac called GitHub. It has 93 folders in it. Whenever I do something on my desktop, I synchronize it to GitHub and back and forth. And this is a remarkably easy way to get two benefits, maybe three. One is that if I'm working with the dude in the cloud, he can see the GitHub stuff, so he can kind of know the same things that my desktop tool does. Not maybe interact as well with it because he can't get to some of the things on my desktop, but he can get to GitHub. If he's in WordPress with the MCP that I built, he can definitely get to it. Second of all, there's the continuity. If my brand new Asus laptop shits the bed and the hard drive fails or something, it doesn't matter much to me. It's all automatically in the cloud. So I check in. I use the dude with the local drive. I'm sorry, let me say it a different way. I check into GitHub, get the latest stuff from GitHub so my local dude can use it. The local dude works on it, and then he checks out by pushing it back up with the changes to GitHub. The check-in, check-out method means I could be on my Mac laptop. I can go to a friend's house. I can go to the library. I can go to a Starbucks, anywhere there's another machine. And any dude that I want can theoretically be working on the same content. And then finally, it's really the shared environment that works. So when I'm building and making cool stuff, you know the problem, you've had it happen. Oh, I was working on my laptop and this amazing thing happened. And then I went to another machine or down the road. Where was that thing? Oh, my mom threw out the hard drive with my Bitcoin tokens on it. This prevents the inevitable problem of having a local machine versus having a cloud-based machine. Because GitHub is, I mean, if GitHub goes away, God help us all. All right. Create your AI workflow, not just the tools. Now, this is where it gets interesting, and I'll probably start sharing the screen. When I started it with my, what I call my hot tub moment in July of this summer, this year. Oh my God, I can't believe how far we've come. July, August, September, October, November, 6 months. The world changed in 6 months. I had that hot tub moment where I coded on my phone an AI interactive WordPress interface. It was an early version of what we're doing now. And my concepts of what it was going to be and how it was going to be have really evolved. But what I learned is a couple things. Here's some examples. Besides where I share and which tools I use, I also have a concept of putting a flag in the sand and preserving your progress. When I first started out, when I wrote launch flows as a human coder, it's what we call an object-oriented code. It has a folder with subfolders, with files and subfiles. It's kind of like the library or a file system for humans. It's designed for human brains who can't process 10 billion things at once to go, oh, the Johnson file has this deposition, and on the January folder inside of that is the deposition for January. That's not how AI works. AI works like, give me 10 trillion pieces of data and I go and know what it's at. I realized that if I was trying to use a folder, an object-oriented programming method with AI, it was going to torture me to death. Why? AI does really, really badly at going through multiple files and folders to find something. It is horrible at it. Horrible. There's terms that are thrown around called vector database, RAG, and so forth. Those are terms that are fancy ways of saying when humans built databases like MySQL and stuff, you have essentially a folder system, right? You have tables and rows and columns and stuff that human brains can be like, look, it's over there. Vector database is like ping pong balls in a swimming pool. It's just an infinite amount of random stuff with metadata attached to it that can be instantly found, sorted, and reused. And what that means is that when I build stuff now, I have rules that I tell the tool. And these are some of the skills I share with you guys in my free skill documents. For example, make a single file WordPress plugin. Let's look at one of the ones that I'm building. I built one yesterday, this new one called Minute Launch User Approval. When we look at this, by the way, the fact that the tool makes all of the cool stuff is awesome too. It makes all the notes and everything. When we look at the actual file, and I promise not to get too geeky, look at what's at the top. Oh boy, you're never going to see that. That's really hard to see. Let me make it a little bigger for you guys because that's just really hard to see. Okay. Notice at the top of the file, table of contents. And notice, by the way, it's just a single file plugin. Table of contents. Plugin constants, database management, admin interface, access control. One of the things I learned after 1,000 tries was to inform my dudes, this is the way to make a WordPress plugin. It's a single file, unless there's absolutely no way around it. This means HTML, CSS, JavaScript, PHP, everything in a single file with a table of contents at the top and easy to find for LLMs and human beings references. So if I go to the table of contents and I go, oh, I want to know where's that admin interface. Oh, 3.1. I could just scroll down 1, 2, 3, 4, blah, blah, blah to the 3.1 or do a search, Control F, 3.1, go right to the point, line 255. Number 2 is that the file itself, I had to tell it how to name it. Notice all my shit is named ML this and ML that and ML the other. When I do it this way with lowercase ML this, ML that, it makes it infinitely easier than if I just allow this thing to go, hey, I'll randomly name this something. Because if you allow the LLM to randomly name stuff, it's going to just continually go, V1, V12, 64, best, the awesomest. Have you guys ever done that, by the way? Have you ever tried to actually code stuff or write stuff with the LLM and you let it name it? Because what happens is when it does the naming itself, it just comes up with the weirdest, stupidest names, which is sort of pointless, right? Pointless. Thank you, by the way. I would like maybe to request maybe a little Dave Brubeck 5. You know, that would be awesome. So the way I write the plugins, the way I tell it to write the plugins. Now, there's a couple other tricks. When it does something right and it creates something, I ask it to save that stuff. So for example, let's say for purposes like this minute launch user approval, let's say it makes something and it actually functions. I can tell it, you did a great job. When you did that interface item, that is the way I want the interface items to look. I have a example plugin that I just wrote yesterday. Let's put it in, even though this is so zoomed in. I don't know if this is going to work. Hold on. Let's make a new site. Oh, I've got an office hours plugin. Let's see if I can use that. I have to restructure this a little bit, and I don't want to turn this into a hands-on demonstration, but I want to just show you. For example, I use InstaWP for these throwaways. Let's see if my new plugin works that I created yesterday called User Approval, and I'll tell you what it is. Add plugin. The dudes were told, make it a single file plugin. I'm going to go, you can't see what I'm doing. I'm looking because I'm sharing not my whole screen now. I'm sharing my, just the directory, but I'm going into my GitHub and I'm getting this new file called ML user approval. And it has a zip file that I'm uploading. Let's see if it activates without crashing. Okay. Minute launch approval. I have no users on the site, but here's what it does. You can create settings that allow you to hold people in abeyance. And the reason that you want to hold them in abeyance is like, let's say you have a social network or something else where you're like, listen, you can sign up for free or otherwise, but I need to approve you and make sure that you can't look at stuff in the meantime. And what it allows you to do is create a really beautiful page that if somebody tries to get to your stuff and they're not logged in, they will essentially see the message that you have. And then for the administrator, they have to approve them. So let's see if I add the user, test@testing.com, test user. Okay, I'm just making a nonsense user so that we can see somebody in the actual system. I've got this nice interface that I can have filtering and sorting or search by name. And if I approve them, great. If I don't, I don't. Now let's log out of this and see what happens. And if I refresh this page and I go to the home, let's see what I see. A little tricky when I've got this thing so zoomed in. Let's see if I can use this button. My feeling is that I'm doing this wrong. So let me log back in for a second. I'm going to use the switch to feature. Whatever. I won't even bother with it. The point of the story is like, because I don't want to get distracted on this. When I was making the tool, I'm able to create a set of features, including, for example, like I showed you a minute ago. Good morning, Zach. I showed you guys the interface. This interface here, this kind of stuff is a reusable interface. This kind of stuff here, reusable interface. I explained to my dude that there was some resources in WordPress that allow you to repurpose the UI for any WordPress plugin that follows a set of standards. That, in other words, it doesn't use extra tchotchkes that it invents. It uses the graphics and the other things that are built into WordPress, which is a very, very useful tool because it saves a lot of trouble. Notice Canvas block. Similarly, when I'm making stuff and it works, I tell the guy, oh, that's an interface I want to use again. And that makes it possible in the future to go faster, farther, because every time he does it, it's not just random. I'm going to move on to this one. All right. Train your AI on your business, how to feed the AI information so it becomes an extension of your brain, not a tool. Now, I had a call this morning with Anne. a philosophical conversation, which is something that comes up all the time, about what if we've got a client or customer that's just not super happy with the tools. They're not comfortable working with the tools. Here in his example, I've got the minute launch canvas block. I said to her, for a person like that, you can train the AI or teach him or her to use the AI based upon what makes things faster for that person. For example, some people, even yourself, might not actually work faster by having a desktop agentic tool that publishes into the WordPress site. Why? Because giving all of that responsibility end to end of taking an idea, making the code, publishing it, making sure it's right, may do your head in as a person. It would be literally like if you had a business and I gave you an employee who came from overseas and that employee took care of everything for you. You might be freaking out 24/7 that the employee is doing it wrong, but you don't understand what they're doing. So you feel very, very, very uncomfortable. Claude skills, I'm going to weave into this. That's a good point. Let me finish this thought and I'll come back to the skills versus skill documents. The main point I want to talk about is that each person can get different benefits from using AI at different levels. For example, let's say I had a client, and this is a site that has one plugin in it. I mean, by the way, there's a simple site in here, but let's say I've got just minute launch canvas block. That's it. I could very easily go to Gemini and go, hey, you've got great design skills, Gemini. Give me a hand. Make a beautiful HTML5 website page that I can post inside of my WordPress that says, hi from Spence at WP Launchify. I mean, this is stupid. The point is, you could have a client or yourself that you just go to any browser-based LLM and have it make stuff. And the only tool you need is just the manual, let's add a page, or use simple site. But when I release it, John, if I add a page and it's got canvas block, you can just say ML canvas block. You can just say to the client, like, hi from Spence. This is how you make a page, right? And all they have to understand is, look, I can hide the footer, hide the header, and I'm good to go. Then I just paste in whatever Gemini gives me. Copy, paste, preview, publish, done. Now, cognitively, this is really, really easy. You can teach the client something like this. Say, nice job, make it bigger, better, red, happier, put some snowflakes, fireflies, just make it cooler. You can teach the client better prompts than that, but you can teach the client how to improve the outcome of something as simple as, like, I'm using the hippie designer from Gemini. Dude. And this thing itself just gives the content to copy paste. Now, what would I do with that content? I would say you could either go to Google Drive or you could go over here and you can do a free GitHub and say, create new repository. And you could call it hippie dude. And you could say a repository for designs from Gemini. And you can make it public or private. I'll make this public for shits and giggles. You can make it private if you want to keep it to yourself and your client. When I make it public, now when the dude makes stuff, like the last thing he made, I copy this and I go over to GitHub and I simply say, you know, go into the repository, create a new file or upload a new file. I'll create a new file, paste the file in, give it a name, call it, you know, hi Spence. Now this is what we call versioning. Hi Spence .html, because it's an HTML file. And watch what happens when I commit the changes. I can say automatically what it's about. This was from office hours. It was my first attempt in having something made to show how easy it is to work with GitHub. It will make a version number along with my notes that will be saved so that if I make a change, like right now, I can keep editing either the same file or make different versions of files. So let's copy this. And let's go ahead and edit this again using the minute long canvas block. Notice too, I mentioned this to Ann today, that when you're using minute launch canvas block, you also have internal versions here. If you go to revisions of WordPress, check it out, dudettes. There's revisions. I can see whichever things I had used before. I can also do that, which is kind of cool. But for right now, I'm just going to do the bigger, better, redder. If I take that and I go back over to GitHub, now I can either keep changing this by editing it, clicking on the pencil and editing it and pasting, and then committing it. And I say, see what it's going to say. I can make a note like V2. But even if I don't do V2, the point is I can use a thing in here that allows me to see the version changes, right? You can literally see, just like I showed you, like version 1, version 2, what's different, what's changed. Truthfully, I like to keep it simple. I would probably not do that. I would probably just keep making different file copies. Version 1, version 2, version 3, version 4, version 5. Now, John asked a good question. Claude has skills. All of the LLMs have skills, believe it or not. So OpenAI's now got skills. Perplexity, I'm pretty sure, has skills. Gemini sort of has skills. But if you go into capabilities, even on the online one, you can see skills. Skills can be added either manually as a global tool, upload, write, create it on the fly, or you can do it project-based. Project-based skills are interesting because those actually are useful in the context of something, right? So if I was in Fluent MCP lessons, I can actually click these things here and edit the details and create skills that are specific to this project, memory, instructions, files. Finally, I can make global skills. Like, for example, with Fluent MCP and Minute Launch, I've been using my dudes to create a library called a knowledge base that allows them to have amazing skills to do stuff that was really hard simply by pointing them to that page or copying the URL. Notice there's the human part in text, but then at the bottom, there's the AI part. And this means that I could go, for example, copy the URL to this section. I could go to the dude and be like, even though he's a knucklehead, my copy paste is wrong. So I'll copy this page itself. Or you could just copy the page URL here. And I'm going to paste it in. I'm going to say, hey, listen, here's a skill document. Can you use this to make some really cool content? Call this version 3. Change the colors, change the content. Be creative. The idea is I now have skills that I can use with my tool that are global in the agentic tool itself, specific to the project, which means it only is using that skill for that thing, or really generically global, and I can use it on demand, where I'm essentially saying to the guy, look, here's a skill that Uncle Spence gave you, and you can do whatever you want with it. But now he's read the thing. Look, based on the professional design principles from Fluent MCP, here's what I'm going to do. And now he's going to create something which, you guessed it, I'm going to save as version 3 in GitHub, so that if I'm working on this in the future and I get, a little tired or lazy, or God forbid, I know that all the things that I did are going to be memorialized. And by the way, I could actually copy his notes and everything else there if I want. So let's do this together. Let's paste it in here. Let's see what he came up with. I have no idea because I'm not being prescriptive yet. I'm just on a whim. Pretty cool, right? Like, I don't know what my skill was here. My skill was designing hero sections that get attention, right? So let's close a couple windows. Notice he followed some principles that I laid out for him. Billboard, right? What's the pain, or what's the thing? Where's it from? What's your call to action? He did a good job. Now, if I took that, I would go over to GitHub, and let's do like I suggested. If we go back up to the top, instead of repeating this file, I could just do the same thing, and I could say add new file, and I'll just put in the new one. And I'll make a note here that says, hi Spence 2.html. But what I can do is add notes in the comments or the commit about what the hell it is that I did. And for that, I could just very simply take his information about what he did. I don't need the code again, but just take this bit. And that will help me understand in the future when I come back to this, what was I thinking exactly? What was going on with that, right? So commit, I'm going to paste in here, commit changes. So now what I've got is, think about it. I've got high spence 1, high spence 2. High spence 2 has all this information, including the code. And if I look at the commit notes, it will tell me what's going on with it. You, by the way, can also put the code notes right inside the code in a comment block. And I've got the output on a page that has a version number that, here's the question back to like cognitive dissonance, right tool for the right job. 99% of the people will find this convenient to just go, oh, I can edit the text. And even though this is moving, it makes it a little harder. I could just literally go, hello from Spence, save edits. That's why the minute launch canvas block is convenient over, for example, using the text block or something like that, because it gives you the kind of tools that really are like a hybrid between a page builder and Kismet. This being HTML5, it's universal. I can use this in email. I can use it elsewhere. Now, to wrap this up, where you use this also has to do with context. We talked a minute ago about what if I had all this data that I had downloaded from Fathom, or I had all this information from my clients. I would probably want to give that context to the dude to use. And with the minute launch tools or the Fluent MCP tools, you have that. So for example, what I'll often do is I'll have a call on Fathom. I don't think I'm revealing any confidences here, but I'll go into Fathom and I built a plugin that will take the details out of Fathom, right? So yesterday I was having a call with, among other people, Antonio and Irina. We have 2 hours of building stuff together. I can either ask the dude inside of here to give me a summary, or I can ask him to just give me the whole transcript. But either way I do it, I can use this for making cool stuff. This is what I mean. If I go here and I say, ask Fathom, I say, hello, Mr. Fathom. I'm making a web page example of how I can take the information you've got of my call with Irina and Antonio. Give me something in HTML5 that I can hand off to Gemini to design and make beautiful about the key 3 highlights of our meeting. Keep it clean and sort of public because this is going to be shared on a live video. So I can ask the tool directly, or I can export it to my WordPress site and use it there. But the AI is now taking the content, giving it to me in a format where it's really good at this knowledge-based stuff. I'm going to take this, even though it's given me some code, and I'm going to give this, if I want, to Gemini to make more awesome, right? So I can just copy the code itself. There's really not much stuff. And I can go, hey, Mr. Gemini, can you take this information from a recent Fathom conversation and make it look awesome according to the skill you just learned, to give me a new file? So I'm saying, hey, dude that works in the word processing department, make an outline and hand it off to the dude who's working in the graphic arts department so that he can make it awesome and look good. Yeah, so I have a bunch of tools. A couple other things I'm going to share with you as treats. We have 10 minutes left. The anonymizer still lives. I'm also working on, as part of the anonymizer, a video deposition service plugin, which has nothing to do with you guys, but that's one of the things I've gone deep in the rabbit hole with. You kind of saw here that I've got, in addition to the things I've shared, a couple new tools like things that can work for functional WordPress. But we also built other things that I've shared or talked about before, which is like having a dude in line that answers questions for members that uses the context of the site. All of these things are where I see the system going, because for those of you who are using my tools, I'm giving you essentially like the universal framework with WordPress to implement any of these things instantly. And then the delivery mechanism is also almost instantaneous, as I'll show you, because I can deliver it through this Minute Launch AI dashboard or through the Fluent MCP. Let's see what we come up with. So one more time, we go back over here. We're going to edit this. I won't even preview it. I'm just going to look and see what it is. And it took the same style, came up with the meeting highlights, right? We approved the interface. We did a resource library, check context, hide from spends. I can save that if I want. Over here, you already know how I did that. I make a new file. I'm good to go. All right. Let's talk about what I just mentioned, and then we'll go on to the last slide. If I took this site and I go back and I add the new Minute Launch plugin manager, the system on this is actually pretty neat because I've been working. That's what's taken a lot of my time, to be fair. I've been working on trying to get the client very lightweight, so it doesn't do stuff like when I have 1,000, 10,000 users on it, it doesn't like shut everybody off because I'm doing an update. And I think I've come up with a pretty good solution. I know this is probably not going to work because I haven't authorized this site, but let's see if it works. I have a server that has all the software. It manages the relationships. When you get involved in it, it gives you a nice interface that delivers everything you need to do the things we're talking about. And it does it at a very low monthly cost, or it does it as a one-time cost if you go through the Fluent MCP version of this. And all of the reasons I'm sharing this is that I envision a situation, notice the similarities with the interface using all the standard WordPress stuff. I envision a situation where I am able to really change the way WordPress works, right? You guys were really excited, and John particularly last week when I introduced Simple Site. Simple Site, I'm really excited about because it's got so much potential and possibility to change the way WordPress works for 99% of the people. But at the same time, I thought, wouldn't it be awesome if I took this one step further, and instead of it just being like site ready to go in a box, it also had a dude attached to it who could talk to all these other tools, including things like Anonymizer, blah, blah, blah. And then I would have like a one plugin solution that would bring what WordPress always should have been, would have been, could have been to the masses. Notice what I have to do is I have to say display homepage, save, and this will implement whatever I've got left over here from my Simple Site, which looks like the default stuff. So I was just able to create from scratch a one-page WordPress solution where all of the components are available to be used and edited. And like I said, ideally to have a dude on a browser-based level connected to this where you could just interface with them. So that's the plan. And I think that ultimately that's going to allow me to help people use the tool at a level they're comfortable with for their business. You and I as implementers might be comfortable doing the whole MCP and having like desktop tools. The person who owns the company, probably not. Probably they would prefer to just be able to have something like, oh, look, I talked to my phone and it made something cool, and then I copied and pasted it in, because they understand what level they're interacting. There's something for everybody, but when you train it on your business, you get the results you want. Now, here's something interesting. I asked it to keep it clean for the kids. The effing idiot folder method. For this, I'm going to bring out one of my guests from Portal to Ascension. So let me bring out, I'm going to do a little switcheroo on this because I'll go back and forth, but let me say what this does first. What I found was happening was, as I started developing more and more complex stuff, my dudes were making mistakes over and over again. And the reason for that is really simple. I had to remind myself that there is, even with the auto memory that I write, Jack Arturo writes that I implement, even with auto memory or the specialized skills, this is like being at a Waffle House where every time the waiter or waitress goes away, you don't really realize it, but it's theoretically like a complete stranger coming back. And it's only through some mysterious thing outside of your understanding and control that they know who the hell you still are and what you ordered. And once you start to realize that, it prevents you, especially later in the day, from getting really frustrated that you've said the same thing 50 times. It goes along 49 of them. And then on the 50th time, it just starts over and erases and eliminates everything you've done. I can't tell you how many times this happened until this is why those three other things came into play. Remember a couple minutes ago, I said, write AI for the right task. ChatGPT is a Nazi. He's just constantly torturing me. Will not code with ChatGPT. I code with Sonnet 4.5. I set up context. In other words, I give them the MCP connection. I put stuff in WordPress. I have my folders. I sync it to GitHub. I can't lose the stuff. I create a workflow. When I'm building stuff, it's faster for me to sometimes have him copy paste the code. If he makes the zip files, I make sure he makes the zip file and puts them in releases folder. I make sure that I reuse components. I train it for what I want to do. If I'm working with a customer, a client, we set up a shared environment. If I'm working for myself, I have the folders. I can tell the one guy about the other guy's stuff. I'm building the framework to deliver updates. In other words, I'm making it so that Spence and Spence's business and Spence's clients have less work. The effing idiot folder is that the last stage is that I realized I would get 9 steps down the road or 99 steps, and it would just do something stupid and set me back to 0, and I would just lose my shit. Here's what it looks like. This is bulletproof, by the way. Bulletproof. And apparently I'm not alone in figuring this out, because other people have done this, and I just came across this on my own, but it, you know, a lot of people can come up with the same ideas from independent nature. Here is Portal to Ascension. It's a developmental site that's going to be awesome as an use case. But what I want to show you is this. If I open up the sidebar, let's shut down the chat. Let's close a few things here. I have to, by the way, this is one of the things about Cursor, which is awesome, but also super annoying. It's got like 8 trillion windows that pop open, and it's impossible to keep track of them. You have to just get used to what's available. Notice inside of here, if I zoom in, I have a very reasonable organizational structure. It's still a little messy, to be honest with you, but inside of the main folder, I've got, things that are supposed to keep it neat. This is a mistake. These shouldn't be floating around loosely. But inside of here, and I have to have him clean this up, should be a folder called, as I'm telling you all this, look how neat I've got it. And then where is it? Oh, I know why. Because Spence is having a brain fart. It's not in Portal to Ascension. It's inside of Plugin Manager. Sorry, guys. Let me get the right dude out here. Here he is. Let me switch to the right dude. StreamYard, if only you could allow me to share more than one screen at a time, I would be so in love with you. I think this is it. ML Plugin Manager. Okay. One more time. If I go over here, and again, let me close a bunch of these things. Close all. Let me toggle all of these things closed. And I drag this open. Here is the folder called effing idiot. I'm not even going to swear about it. Inside of here are several files. The files that are inside of here are what happened on this state? What happened on this state? What did I do wrong? Here's the correct thing I should have done. Here's the architecture of what we're really building. Here are the rules of what to do. Here are the things about a guide about the plugin. In other words, everything and anything that this guy either did wrong, did right, what we're building, how we're building it. Why? Because what happens is this. Let's say, I'm going to close some of these windows. Let's say I'm working with the guy and he suddenly does something wrong. I simply go right click and I say copy path. And this is Cursor. You can do similar in Claude. You can make a project called F an Idiot or do it in the project itself. And I paste it in and I say, hey, Bernardo, don't get upset. I'm just having a live office hours and I'm explaining about the F an Idiot folder and what it does. Can you help everybody understand how this helps you stay on track? So essentially, he will read this in a normal situation and he will immediately go, oh my God, I'm such an idiot. And what it does for me is instead of me having to repeat myself 1,000 times or getting upset and throwing something, This essentially creates, like he says, a self-documenting system that captures major mistakes and how to avoid it. It helps him learn from his mistakes, follow the correct processes, avoid repeating errors, save time. If he's stuck, if he needs key documents, why it helps. Pattern recognition. He can spot when he's making a mistake, like when he's going in a loop. He can process the steps easier because they're outlined for him. He saves time. He's accountable. Golden rules, right? These are things that I've taught him. Compare working to broken. Don't trust external APIs. Remember your caching. Automate everything. Listen to me. And so forth. So the end of the day, what this does and why I think you should do it is you create a document that allows you, let me go back to the slideshow, that allows you to essentially save the trouble of having to repeat yourself a million times. And in doing so, you will find that your relationship with AI gets better. It's like a couples therapy for your AI. You are able to have a relationship now where you don't have to get upset. You can just kind of go, hey, read this. And it's almost fun to see him trip on his own toes and go, oh, I'm such an idiot. When it's all said and done, these 5 points will really probably help you guys, I think, get better use out of what is to come. Because what is to come on my level, on the global level, is number one, there is an arms race that's just crazy awesome between all these companies to put out as much stuff as possible and make it free. And I don't know why they're in such a rush, other than I think they understand that the kind of like any arms race, the company with the biggest, best toys first wins. It's kind of sad, but it's also available to us. So I think we can benefit from it. From my standpoint, what I think I'm doing is I'm trying to stay focused. And John, you're a good sport about it, but like, I love the emails. Like, you said a week ago, 2 weeks ago, this, that. I'm like, yeah, but shit happened. I'm spending hours and hours a day. I have 4 hours of call today after this show with helping people integrate this into their situation. One of the things is to have you become a VIP. So I'm not going to be a sarcastic person. Somebody's finances are their finances, but like, you can buy an hour of my time. You can buy a VIP. You can buy something in between and immediately get satisfaction. Otherwise, what happens is I just am kind of riding the wave, doing as I do, building businesses and showing everybody how to do it. I am introducing, hopefully this weekend, I'm going to turn on what I promised last weekend, which was the VIP area. And there's definitely going to be a release of some more software. But there's so many things that I've got going on at once that I kind of just wake up and I go, this is what needs to be done. This is what I feel like doing. Along the way, though, the AI is a daily part of my experience. And I think for everybody, that's the takeaway. You need to find the place where your AI integrates with your feelings of comfort, your business, your clients' businesses, and pay for them accordingly. I was not joking when I said that my bill from Cursor, I think, was like $2,000. In fact, I think I can share this, but let me see. I haven't looked at the bill. I looked at my credit card bill, which freaked me out. Let me see if I go to Cursor, if it shows my bill. They've got this thing that's called add-on billing or some nonsense. Let's see if it'll let me in here. Hold on. I honestly don't know how I log in with this. I think I log in this way. It's probably two-factor, so let's find out. Okay. So let's see my spending. On-demand spending. This doesn't seem like it's showing what I need to see. Let me see. Billing and invoices. Here. This doesn't seem like it's accurate. It's set to 1,000, but you can kind of here. I think it was closer to $2,000, but you can kind of see what I'm talking about. Like, look what I'm spending. December 16th, $100. December 12th, $100. December 10th, $100. December 9th, $100. December 7th, $100. I'm in love with Sonnet. I'm just using it like all the time, everywhere with clients. So it's paid for itself for me. But I think that's what happened. When it hit the limit, I was at 1,000, and I think it said, would you like to jump it to 2? And it kind of felt like I was at the casino with like, Mr. Foreman, would you like a credit line of $2 million instead of $1 million? But the point is, look, I used 712 million tokens in Sonnet, a new world record. because my relationship with this is amazing. It's amazing. It's changed my life. And I'm trying to say, I think you guys have the same opportunity here. I hope to continue bringing out cool tools and helping you. Hopefully today was useful. I love all of you guys. I hope you have a great holiday week coming up. I am going to be here. We do Chronica. So we're kind of like hanging loose. We're going to do Christmas Eve and then Christmas morning. All the gifts for Hanukkah come at one time with the Christmas gifts. And then Friday, I'll be here. I don't know if you'll be here, but I'll be here. So hopefully if you're in town, you'll stick around. And I will be delivering gifts for all of you guys for Chronica. Treats. The treats, John, are what I alluded to, but I have Minute Launch Simple Site with the chat thing. I've got these new plugin add-ons. I've got the new dashboard. I've got the Minute Launch MCP server, which is coming out of the Fluent. I mean, there's a lot of cool stuff. There is one other thing that I can share with you if you want, since John is hinting. Let me see if I can get into this, though. Hold on. Before I share the screen, I have to go to this and see if I can get to it. This idea came out of working with Antonio and Irina. Let me get to the website. Okay, I'm going to share the screen. Oh, that's correct. So their client is this client UBR, which doesn't mean anything. It's just the name of the company. We have a couple tools. First of all, you can see all the UBR tools up here: UBR Approval, UBR Coach, Courses, Events. First of all, one of the things that I think is interesting that's going to be definitely coming out as a tool or whatever, whenever you've got a community, like with Fluent Community, they've got the ability to do courses and lessons. But I just really find it tedious. I find the whole metaphor tedious. Very, very, very tedious. I found that it's much easier with the tools that I've got to give MCP control and capability to create courses as just single page courses that have all the lessons and everything built in. And you've seen examples of this before. If I go to a page here, I think we have a model of this set up with something cool in it. Student dashboard, admin final. I got to find the actual thing here. Let me search for the word course. Sample course. Let me see if this is it. So you've seen this before. I talked about it with another client, Earthed. What if the whole concept of courses was just turned into a single page managed by MCP and Minute Launch Canvas block, even simple site capable, right? How cool would that be? All I've got is a block of stuff that your client or you can take on over to the dude and be like, hey, here's a single site page course. Can you change all the colors on this and the content and the topics and make it something completely different, but keep the same basic format? What if we could get rid of LearnDash entirely? What if we could get rid of all of the complexity of using courses even inside of the Fluent community into something as simple as this? Just think about it while he's working on it. Number two, inside of here, I was mentioning with the coach, all of the conversations that any person has on this site with the coach are private to them. So for example, I log in and I go to I think it's under UBR Coach. I go to the UBR Coach and I have a conversation about business, right? Tell me about the tax consequences of the 2025 ACA Act of US Congress. Whatever happens here, this creates context that the individual student, I'm not sure if they disconnected the router, but the point is that when it talks to the AI properly, when the student creates context, it can be saved and managed by the student, but it also exists on the back end. When we have this tool, the MCP can connect your desktop, or even locally, there could be an agent who could use all of this information as context. along with the context from the courses. So imagine a situation where with just maybe one or two simple, really modest plugins, you can have a chat partner that works with the students or the clients that can create, edit, and manage coursework, lessons, and stuff, and continues to build it dynamically and gets better based upon what other people who are asking questions have asked. Pretty crazy. Here's another one. Events. I thought Foo Events and the Events Calendar Plus are written by lunatics from another decade. I mean, you literally need like 12 plugins to make those things work. Why? Why can't we make it simpler where somebody has a front-end interface that's super easy, or a back-end interface to create events that, by the way, include courses, lessons, include coaching, whatever. And in doing so, they can make an interface or have an interface that is really powerful and popular, but it's a very lightweight single file plugin. Again, I don't want to be in the, I'm going to make plugins for one person business. This is a VIP client. But because we made this, I think this can be converted into something that gets rid of about 12 plugins, all that Foo Events stuff, all of the calendar stuff. This chat is a big treat. Let me show you, for example, if I can find the page, because I think I put this in a dashboard. Let's go, for example, we're building something here called a student dashboard. So it's called Irina's dashboard, I believe. Here. We're working on this. So design-wise, here's a student dashboard. Notice some really cool stuff besides the courses and whatever. It's got, look, all the events that I can go to, check-ins, whatever. The events themselves will have specific dashboards for people to go to Zoom meetings and so forth. But the real trick to this, I think, is going to be for the check-in. If I want to check somebody in as the administrator, I want to have a situation where I have a front-facing thing. I don't have to go on the back end for that event that will show a panel that allows me to see all of the students. I think it's here. Let's see if this is, no, that's the broken one. Let me show you in the back end. It will look something like this, where for any particular event, I can open up a check-in window, and on the front end, I will see who's the teacher, who's the student, check in the student, yes or no. And I'm good to go. In other words, like super lightweight, super easy, super manageable by the AI. If you want to have invites sent like, hey, Spence, we just checked everybody in and you're not here. Are you still coming? All of that stuff are things that come from what I was just describing, which is me working with real people in real VIP situations, making simpler things that look better, act better. But then let's go back to the dude. The dude just took this course and remade it, right? I'm going to take this course and I'm not going to even use it at UBR. I'm going to go back over here to Minute Launch where we were playing before, or sorry, in this office hours. Let's make a new page. And probably what I'm going to have to do is I'm going to have to turn off Simple Site. So I'll disable it. And I'm going to make a new page and let's see what this course looks like. Because since it's done with this system, new course, fully transportable. All of the stuff in this can go anywhere, anytime. That's revolutionary. Revolutionary. Why? Because I can make stuff that is hosted on one site that shows everywhere to anybody, and I can control access to it. And hold on, I gotta, because the Simple Site didn't change, I have to turn off Simple Site. This is revolutionary when you think about it, because you can use the CDN capabilities of what comes in WordPress with the hosting from Rocket and otherwise. And let me, so I don't lose the thread here, close a couple windows. And in doing so, you can literally have an engine that generates out and spits out almost everything you need for everywhere from one site. One of the things I have to do is just clear this cache, plugin manager, canvas block. Let me clear the cache. Okay, now that I got that back, let me go to this page. And I'm just going to change one word here. Boop. Save. Let's see what this looks like. That is not the page. I'm going to do something here just to save the trouble because the cache on this site. I'm going to just go to Minute Launch and put it up here for a second. One of the reasons you can kind of tell from that old version of Simple Site, that was an older one, is the cache is a little too persistent. So it would stick when you tell it to serve it up on the whole site. It would remember that and not give it up. So I'm going to paste it in. Fully transportable site course. Let's see what we got. And for the block, I'm just going to, again, click on Minute Launch Canvas block. I'm going to hide header, footer, because I don't know what it gave me. Maybe it gave me something super cool. Let's see what I got. Now, it did do something super cool, but it did it so cool because it did a good job of colors that don't look right. But if I wanted to change that, I could just say, you should remember the rule of not using light colors on light backgrounds. I can't see any of the stuff. Can you make this highly visible? So if you or your client was using this and they were getting that kind of weird output, all you need to tell it is just make it easier to be visible. One of the reasons it's probably not visible is that it's just not setting the background colors, and my default Minute Launch is probably bleeding through. But in like 2 seconds, it takes the whole course and remakes it. And imagine what you're using right now with LearnDash. Anybody who's using LearnDash, and by the way, Justin Fairman made an amazing product at the time for what we had. This is like putting the saddle on your horse and taking the wagon out to the barn and like an hour and a half later going for a ride down to the town. Whereas this is like getting the spaceship and let's do crazy shit together, right? Because we live in a world now where I can use the tool to make this better, stronger, faster, easier. I can iterate it on again and be like, make it more visible even still, not so dark and black and modern. Make it more traditional looking, maybe like leather bound and natural colors. And the point of the story is I can continue, or the client can continue to iterate by using words to describe what it needs and wants. The content can be delivered in a singular media library dynamically wherever you want. The chat can work in the site or remotely to continue to keep that data in its brain and make stuff from it. And if you're comfortable, you can have the LLM updating the site automatically, sending the emails automatically. If you're not, or your client's not, you can just do this kind of copy paste method. Whichever way you're comfortable, the tools are there. But you know what I've not done one time today? Not one time. I have not one time done page builder blocks other than Minute Launch Canvas block. Boom. I have not one time gone in and done 64 drop-down menus, save, move. All the tools of WordPress have left the building, and yet I'm still using WordPress. And I think that's a huge takeaway. And one of my main points is that WordPress is awesome. All of these intermediary tools, even the design tools from another era, God bless you if you want to fart around with CSS all day. I do not want to do that. Here's my oldie-timey version of it. It's very hipster. Okay. That's enough treats for you, John. I don't want you to get a tummy ache. Lots more to come. I want you guys, if you're not done so, to hire me for an hour. Join VIP. Get on board. If you have clients, it will pay for it. Those projects that I just showed you, I think it's public enough. That's a client that Irina and Antonio have. That's a $30,000 client. I'm being paid $5,000 to deliver the relationship, the training, the oversight, the goods. I love this. We get on the Zoom call. We have a call between the three of us, and the fourth is the dude. We share, we build. That's the summation of about 4 hours. That whole site, 5 hours of hands-on work, 5 or 6 maybe. I lost track. There was preliminary planning and other stuff, but like actual work, 5 or 6 hours. I think the project will be done this weekend. If you have a client, if you have a business idea, if you have for your business, the investment of $5,000 is nothing, because the power of what we can deliver. like a 1 or 2 or 3 plugin solution that does everything under the sun to manage a business and operations, connect to outside APIs and I mean, and I showed you in one of the videos this week, my friend Vince, who I love to death, who's a graphic artist, we're goofing around, and I won't repeat it. Watch the video of how I made a dynamic version of what he said. He has a client who paid him $20,000 to make endless edits to these cheese packages, which is the only way to do it, unless you have a dude. And I showed him with the dude, he could probably get that done in a lot less time. Now, Vince will be in the show because Vince and I have a great relationship, and I think he's adapting more than anybody. Vince, if you're here, say hi. But it's a brain adjustment. Like Vince has made his living, his career, his family has, of being professional graphic designers and artists for the commercial industry and products in specific terms. And it's an adjustment to start using your words to have a dude do things for you when you're used to using your mouse and pen and paper. Anyway, that's enough. I hope you guys have a great weekend. Thanks for sticking around with me. I love you all. If I don't see you for the holidays, I'll be here. Have a great holiday. And we're going to start the new year with a killer. But for me, if you're on the fence, I ask you to jump in now. Get your tax benefits. Do the VIP. Pick up a Fluent MCP. I told you guys before that thing's going into a different mode. So I begrudgingly did the Black Friday. It was a great success. That $497 for lifetime is going away. That's going to become the annual price. And the lifetime is probably going to be the $1497 for a single site, because the people who are using it with great success are very happy. And that's a way to get what you need in a one-time purchase. But I would really prefer you guys join me for Minute Launch AI. All right. Peace. Talk to you soon.